Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Before we get going, poor work intake equals out of control. Out of control means high stress, you get less done. It's not good. Mastering Work Intake by Jeremy Willits and Tom Cagley is the path to bring order out of chaos. Buy a copy today, J. Ross Publishing or Amazon. The Software Process and Measurement Cast is on vacation for the next few weeks. Until then, we're revisiting some of the fabulous panel discussions we've had during the last 19 years. We'll be back on June 21st. We're looking forward to continuing the conversation. Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 762. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. In the Spamcast 762, we host a panel discussion on the impact of AI on project management prospects. The panel of Paul Clapis, Susan Parente, Michael Milutis, and Mark Tolbert state categorically that project administration will be overtaken, but the high-value human side of project management will not be displaced. I am not sure what that means for the majority of people working in the project management space. Listen to the discussion, then look carefully at the work you're doing. Will AI be a boon or a bane for project management? Let the conversation begin. The panel consists of Paul Clapis. Paul has over 30 years of experience managing AI, machine learning, and RPA projects for NASA, aerospace, and financial service industries. He's also directed the Hughes Advanced Computing Lab at Yale Science Park, where he conducted applied research in AI, expert systems, machine learning, and neural networks. Susan Parente. Susan is an engineer, consultant, speaker, author with experience managing both software and hardware development. She is proficient in managing complex systems implementation for companies seeking to use enterprise business software to improve business efficiency. Susan, as you know, is a regular contributor to the Software Process and Measurement Podcast. And by the way, if you didn't know that, you should catch up on Susan's entries into the podcast. Michael Milutis. Michael Milutis is an international keynote speaker, instructor, and 25-year veteran of the IT industry who's dedicated his career to help individuals learn, develop, and compete within a shifting technology landscape. Mark Tolbert. Mark has over 30 years of experience in IT, including 27 years at Hewlett-Packard. He successfully managed support programs and projects within HP services. He is a full-time instructor for PMP prep classes since November 2007. He is very passionate about project management and believes adopting the best project management practices and skills is critical to the success of enterprises today. Are you ready to contemplate AI in the project management space? It's time for the interview. Welcome, Paul Clapis, Michael Milutis, Mark Tolbert, Susan Parente, whom everybody on this podcast knows. Susan is obviously, people will know, is a long-running columnist on the podcast. You know, we want to talk about AI and project management today. Paul, why don't we start with you? And everybody's going to have to weigh in on this, but I'd like to know what each of you, how you define AI.
Well, when I started working in the field 35 years ago, it originally was an effort to create a general problem solver. And that effort really never succeeded. In fact, what's happened over time is that AI has become more focused on solving narrow, specific problems. That's why I like to say that the term artificial intelligence has probably lost its original meaning. I like to think of AI now as standing for amplified intelligence, really helping people with non-cognitive tasks. And so, yes, there's still people working on general intelligence, trying to build cognitive machines. I think we'll never see that in the next 20, 30, 40 years. As a scientist, there's not a lot of progress in that area. But there's enormous progress, accelerating progress in narrow intelligence, specifically in non-cognitive areas, which is what people are excited about right now. So that's my definition. It's really amplified intelligence to help people solve non-cognitive tasks.
I would chime in. I would say that AI is, I hate the term because there's a lot of mystification embedded inside it. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence. It's very narrow. I just prefer to say it's data science. I think it's much more clarifying because you've got statistical models applied against large data sets aimed at being predictive in such a way that you can create business value. And that's a much more down-to-earth, mundane explanation. I agree with Paul. AGI is a total myth. We're not going to see it in our lifetime. It's not going to magically emerge out of machine learning, which is very narrowly structured. That's just not the way things work. And there's a lot of marketing, hubbub about that right now. I don't think we need to worry about that. But it's basically just data science. That's the way I see it. Predictive and aimed towards business value.
I don't have anything really to add to what Paul and Michael said. I would think, I could see a lot of value for AI type tools, helping project managers, perhaps in their tool set. So maybe new tools for estimating, helping us do estimating, which is very, very difficult. The Agilists are very, very good at pointing out how bad we are at estimating, and they come up with some new tools. So I'd be very excited to see what AI might bring to that forefront. I can imagine helping improve communications tools, disseminating information, creating reports. So I think as you guys are describing, kind of much more narrow focused on tools that help the project manager.
So I look at it like this, like computers are good at repetitive tasks. AI takes that the next step. So with AI, the computer's using historical information, data, like Michael said, to actually kind of make judgments. And that's kind of the weird part. It's like, but the judgment's based on historical information. So for example, on my phone, if I type in the word how, usually one of the words that shows up next is are, because the next thing I usually say is you, right? So it's basically saying historically, Susan says things like, how are you? Now, I don't know if anybody else, when they type in how, has are show up, but there are definitely things that are distinct to me. So that's artificial intelligence. It's basically, like Michael said, using my data, but also reiterating what Paul said. But I think that we're a little bit harmed by Hollywood, so to speak, with artificial intelligence. I think that there's some things happening where we can like recreate people's voices and have people say things they didn't actually say by stringing together their words like that. That's a little crazy, but fundamentally, you're right. It's just basically data. But I'm thinking it's at that different level. Computers do things repetitively. That's great. Artificial intelligence takes all that data and uses it to actually make some sort of decision, sort of, based on history.
How many of you have listened to the new Beatles song written by an AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good.
That sounds very creepy.
Well, the interesting thing though is that it's actually a song that John Lennon had started, and Paul McCartney decided to use some AI to finish it, complete it. So he was actually very much involved in a positive way in that project.
Well, those commercials that AI created, those beer commercials, are just demonic. They're awful. They're really spooky. Have you seen those? They are just out of this world.
It is being used, and in Ohio, they're driving trucks. So we have training on, not training, learning, but training on the highways, which is going to put a lot of people out of jobs in that industry. It just will at some point. There'll also be some interesting accidents, but we'll see, right? We'll see. Today, obviously, we're focused on project management. What do you think it's going? What is the impact of AI to project managers? And by the way, add in there project administrators. Personally, I think they're the ones who aren't going to exist.
I'd like to get started by just saying that one of the reasons we're having this conversation was because of concern with a potential student. He was like, should I go into project management? Is that a good place for me with AI, or am I going to lose my job? So I just to kind of set the stage, I do think project managers to some degree are concerned about what this means for their job. I don't think that's a reasonable concern, which we're all going to share why that is. But, obviously, like Mark said, there's all these things that are automated that we do. I mean, right now, I don't do critical path method. Microsoft Project does that. Why would I do that? Why would I do something the computer can do for me? So I think that it's about how are we going to use artificial intelligence, or as I forgot, what were your words again, Paul? What did you call it?
Oh, amplified intelligence.
Amplified. I like that. Amplified intelligence. How are we going to use amplified intelligence to be better at doing what we do? The judgment call thing, I would not want a computer to make a judgment call on a project, because there's a lot of things going on that we as project managers have to juggle. So all of the soft skills of project management, I don't see those using AI. The hard skills, absolutely. And by the way, I didn't want to do those anyway. So it comes down to, me talking to people, me motivating people. This is one thing that's really interesting. And then I'll have somebody else jump in so I don't dominate here. But gratitude. So one of the key things in being a leader, being a project manager, is expressing gratitude. If I express gratitude, like if an AI expressed gratitude, not a person, that would not land well, because the key with gratitude is it needs to be heartfelt. If I express it and it's not heartfelt, it sounds robotic. It's not received well. So I don't see how we can have artificial intelligence, no matter how great it is, express gratitude and have it land right, because it has to be heartfelt. And that to me it's a big part of leadership. So I think where AI is going to falter, not going to be able to fill in, is in being a good leader.
Yeah, I want to just follow up quickly on that. I give a lot of talks to project managers about the so-called fourth industrial revolution, about AI, automation, all these other technologies. And so a lot of the statistics say things like, 1 billion jobs are going to disappear to AI and automation over the next, 5 to 6 years. But I always make the point that I do honestly believe, not all jobs are going to be equally vulnerable, and project managers are uniquely secure. Because so much of their job, as Susan said, relies on emotional intelligence, and the ability to have rapport with people, to relate to people who are on your project, to get them to sort of inspire to do something together across, especially since projects are global. So people have all these ethnic and religious and cultural differences, but they have to be pulled together. And a good leader has to have that type of rapport to get things done. That can't be automated. That's not going to happen in our lifetime. Okay. That is so far off from being simulated by machines. And that's the essence of being a good manager. You can't outsource that. And secondly, the second aspect is that a lot of what the project managers are, these tools will not be replacing them, but they will be utilizing these tools to better do their job. So almost anything that a project manager does, and I was doing some research over this on this week, ChatGPT, as an example, can aid them in whether it's analyzing dependencies on their projects, analyzing risks on their projects, putting together reports, helping them sort of with their communications. And there's, interestingly enough, and this gets to Mark's point in his opening statement, the one thing that a project manager does that ChatGPT cannot do, and this is according to ChatGPT, it confessed its weaknesses, is do estimates. So that is something that is somehow, for some reason,
that's not something anyone in the world can do.
Right. But it's very interesting. So I believe that the key thing for project managers is they must be willing to use these tools. They must learn to use these tools. They are not at risk of being outsourced. They have to synergistically work together with the technology to create something that is of greater value. And what they bring, which is the EQ, the human side, is what the AI can't do. And together that becomes very powerful. And those people that aren't willing to sort of learn about these new technologies and how to use them, they will lose their jobs, because other project managers are simply going to be more effective than they are.
Yeah, I agree completely with Michael's point. When I work with companies that are not succeeding in their AI initiatives, what I find as the greatest gaps are there's no risk management plan. That's a common failure mode. There's no customer involvement. There's no executive buy-in. Many times these projects are just proof of concepts with no ROI calculation at all, right? So what are those factors? What are causing those projects to fail? What does it take to build a risk management plan or to get customer involvement or get executive buy-in? It takes a lot of intelligent conversation with stakeholders, right? AI can't help you do that. That's the human factor. And that's where a successful project manager adds huge value to these projects. Tom mentioned that truck drivers, are a likely area to get phased out. And in fact, you're exactly right. One of the areas that they predict where AI will be successful fairly soon is going to be long distance nighttime truck driving, right? Autonomous vehicles, because first of all, it's on the highway. It doesn't have to navigate the streets. And it's going to be at night where there's not a lot of traffic. And these guys often drive for 12 hours, right? Long distance traveling. So that's going to be a very successful example initially for some kinds of AI. But there's no conversation involved. That truck driver is not sitting there trying to convince a bunch of people to buy into their AI projects, right? So the real value of a project manager is being familiar with these AI tools, but 80% of the skills needed to be a successful project manager on an AI project are things you will learn as a PMP or book of knowledge, source, right? The extra 20% is your conversational skills, your ability to encourage, to show gratitude, to reward people.
Project management's a difficult job, a very difficult job. And in teaching our PMP prep classes, we say the default mode you should think of for project manager is this large end in charge project manager in a strong matrix organization, having budgetary powers, a lot of influence on the resources. I don't care. I don't care how powerful you think you are. In the real project management world, you are outranked by many, many of the key stakeholders, your sponsor, the customer, other senior managers. And the difficult part of the job is that somehow, some way, you have to get all these people together on the same page. PMI would say you have to define boundaries and exclusions for your scope statement. You have to say what's in scope, what's out of scope. That is very, very difficult with all these people, again, who outrank you. That is something that I don't see AI doing in any near time frame. And that is huge pressure on all those soft skills, the negotiating skills, facilitating skills, communicating skills. And guess what? A lot of times it doesn't happen. A lot of times it does fail. I've been to a lot of PMI dinner meetings over the past 25 years, heard of tremendous failures like F-22, almost any major DoD weapon systems. They're billions of dollars over budget. They're years behind schedule. Why? Because they couldn't get those stakeholders on the same page. Who are we talking about? Congress people, brass, other people. It's a difficult job. And I don't see a huge change with AI impacting that.
So when I asked the question, I threw sort of tangentially in the idea of a project administrator, and I know all of you, and I've even written a book on project management. I would suggest that 95% in corporate America are not project managers; they're administrators. They're booking meetings, they're writing reports, they're doing status. They're out of business. What you've just described tells me that that's what AI will do. And those people who are playing that role, that's not a sustainable role. That's at best a $35 an hour person sitting on the side checking on the AI kind of stuff. So, the high thought process stuff, okay, I think we can all go there. But, we've described a lot about what AI is and the fact that it's a tool for the smart and real project managers, but how will it change the skills that individuals need to be in this market? So if it's not going to impact the real project manager, I think it'll have to impact the skills they have.
I think Michael hit it right on the head when he said that most of these people who are doing, AI, they need more emphasis on, if they don't have those skills, they're going to be the ones who lose out, the ones who lose their jobs. So imagine a project manager, you're interviewing somebody to be your project manager, and you ask them what they think about Excel, and they happen to mention, you know what, I'm a project manager, I've never used Excel, never used Word, I don't even have a computer. Now, would you hire that person as a project manager? I think the answer is no. But would you say those skills are critical to being a project manager? I think they are tools that help us. Everyone expects a project manager to be familiar with tools that handle, as Susan said, the routine tasks, right? Okay, imagine in the early days of project management when you literally had to draw your Gantt charts by hand, right? I mean, nobody does that anymore. Nobody wants to do that, as Susan pointed out, right? So the tools in AI will just help the project manager handle the routine standard tasks. And as those new tools emerge, and they're starting to come out now, I think the skills you need to develop as a project manager are to become familiar with those tools to leverage your ability. And we're already seeing that now. Microsoft, as you probably know, with their 365, their Office suite, is starting to incorporate AI into those tools to make them facile and help you do more. So Excel, Word, PowerPoint will all have AI embedded in them. And you as a project manager need to become familiar with those tools.
Yeah, I just wish they could do a darn whiteboard. Susan.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I'm going to give some background to this answer. So I teach at multiple universities. So that I'm just being very transparent about it. My thing is you need to skill up. I call it power up. I did a presentation one time. It's actually also highly recommended, even by people like Warren Buffett during an inflationary period, to invest in yourself. So it is a plug for go take a class, go get a certificate or a certification or whatever. But as most people know, I've got a whole bunch of them. So I actually take my own advice. But I think that's really key. And what we're hearing here is it's the leadership factor, it's the soft skills, and make sure you have those. The other thing is get familiar with these tools. Like the best way to approach your fears is to confront them, right? So if you're afraid of AI, confront it. I want to hear from Michael what he asked ChatGPT, because I think he asked it like, how are you going to take over my PM job or something like that, which I think is brilliant. Ask the enemy what he's going to wear to the battle, so you know what you should be wearing. So Michael, go for it.
Oh, actually, I don't remember what I asked it. I don't think I asked it quite, but I love the way you frame that, but I wasn't that clever. I believe I asked it, I asked ChatGPT, how can ChatGPT help me as a project manager better do my job? And it pretty much listed almost everything from the PIN box, with the exception of estimation, which it made a caveat for us that I can't do that yet, at least. But I like to tell people that, first of all, beyond just what Paul has said and Susan has said, I like to tell them, first of all, you got to be, it's more than just AI. Okay, I don't want to get outside the scope of this talk. But there's obviously a lot of technologies that are maturing right now that are kind of coming online, and they're all interrelating and they're kind of connecting with each other. Like, you have AI, you have machine learning combining with the blockchain, combining with, the metaverse and augmented reality, and like these things compound upon each other. So it's not just AI. And I think that people have to be willing to be generalists. Even if you're a project manager, you have to know a little bit about all of this stuff. Because in 2, 3, or 4 years, this is the world that we're all going to be living in. And those people who are project managers who kind of have built a mental model by knowing a little bit about these things are going to be better prepared to see where the world is going. They're going to be the ones that are going to envision the use cases and the applications of the future. You talk about moving up and skilling up. Well, one thing that project managers do is if they see where things are going, they become much more useful in the enterprise as being visionaries, as people who can sort of make suggestions and make recommendations beyond just being administrators who produce reports, which makes them easily, outsourceable to sort of AI. So being generalist, being knowledgeable about a little bit about all these things, where these things are going, I think that's a big part of surviving as a project manager, or really as anybody. And frankly, the other point is that when Paul says that one of the challenges is that with AI is that there aren't enough project managers who are confident enough to take on these projects. And that right there, embedded in that statement, is the whole thesis for this session, which is that project managers are still useful because at some points, these are projects. Somebody has to implement this technology. These are projects that have to be managed, right? So right away you have the usefulness of the project manager is communicated sort of right there. Ultimately, they're just projects, and but I do believe that the generalist view is going to be very useful going forward. And then one final point I want to make, sorry, is that is the cyber thing, which is that because we are entering a world of what I call total interconnectedness with all of these technologies, which nobody has thought through the risks, systems of systems, systems of systems upon systems, and everything is kind of becoming interconnected. The cyber risks are going through the roof. And any project manager who has that under their belt, not in a general way, but in a specialized way, that's where the one thing I would say, go out and get a certificate, in cyber, because everything that you do, security is going to be embedded in these projects from the very beginning. And those managers that understand that are going to be more valuable as we move into the next five years or so.
No, it's great. This is great food for thought. I've got 3 boys. 2 of them are in IT. One's doing AWS, Amazon Web Services. The oldest, is still a database administrator. And I say to them over and over again, to protect, you're going to get tired of trying to run this rat race and keep up to speed on the latest technologies. That's very, very difficult. I was an IT guy, a software guy, and believe me, I know how difficult it was. So to get these kind of generalist skills, project management skills, soft skills, is huge. It's going to protect you going forward. Do it and stuff. What would you say? So I'd love to hear from Paul, Michael, Susan, and everybody. I'd love to hear what. I was a software guy. I could not go manage a construction project because I didn't speak the language. And what you are telling me, what I am hearing from you all is, you're a project manager. You want to get into project management for AI projects. You've got to learn the language and the basics, the toolkit. What would you recommend? What would you say to these people? So cyber, yes. Get that. What are some other key skill sets, tool sets that you really need to have under your fingertips?
Well, I can say that Susan pointed out, training and certification is an important aspect of that. There was a time when that kind of certification was hard to achieve. But now if you look on sites like Udemy, for example, and other websites that have these training certificates, I would say the average project manager can get their feet wet by taking an overview. Look for a course or overview in artificial intelligence. Start there. A lot of these courses are only maybe 20 hours long. They're not highly technical. They make you familiar with the terminology and the basic vocabulary. And I think then advance from that to more types of certifications that fit your comfort level. Perhaps it could be remote learning, for example. It could be a live instructor, or it could be a local university course, because there's lots of those now. So that's only a small part of what you need to do. It doesn't take a big investment of time. A lot of the online courses, by the way, have money back guarantees. If you're not happy with the course, if it's not a good fit for you, then it doesn't actually cost you anything. And Michael pointed out that you only need to have a little bit of AI knowledge. And that's true. A lot of people who are in project management are intimidated because they think they have to be the expert. And you don't. You really just have to be familiar with the terminology and the concepts. 80%, 90% of the skills you need are those standard project management, PMP, or PMP book of knowledge skills. It's not, you don't have to become a rocket scientist.
Yeah, I love this. Paul and I have talked about this a lot. I'm going to lower the bar down even further. And I'm going to say, as opposed to Udemy and taking courses on Udemy, just use YouTube. Because, you can search, you can find very high level discussions that maybe last for 5 minutes, that are bespoke, that are geared specifically towards the person who knows nothing. Okay, you could sort of search on machine learning for managers, and you could get 100 7-minute talks that are very easy to understand. You don't need to be an expert in Python coding in order to be an effective project manager on a machine learning project, but you do need to know that Python is the language that is most commonly used, right? That's the level of technological literacy that you need. You don't need to know how to code in it, but you do need to know what it is and that it's used. Why? Because you have to identify at some point, what are the skills that we need on this project? Who are we going to have to hire? You can always find the technical knowledge by hiring people and bringing them in. but you have to know what's going to be required. And that's a totally different dimension of knowledge that is accessible to anybody with a few 5-minute investments of time on YouTube if they ask the question the right way.
Susan?
Yeah, so first of all, I wanted to make a comment about cyber. So that conference that Michael and I spoke at that seems like eons ago, I actually talked about cybersecurity for project managers, and it's not directly with AI, but it's sort of ancillary. We've got the Internet of Things, which is basically stemming off of artificial intelligence. And I will tell you this, all of the cyber people that I know, and I have some IT security certifications too, and I've led cyber teams with gurus, like the kind that wear a hoodie and work in the basement, only they're the good guys, like they call them ethical hackers. And I got to tell you, ethical hackers do not have the Internet of Things in their home. They don't have a refrigerator that tells them what's in their refrigerator. And there's a reason for that. So I do think as project managers, cyber is in all of our projects from now until, I don't know, until I'm no longer on this planet, for sure. And probably after that. So I think that AI is going to be the same type of thing. I think we need to embrace it and learn more about it. Michael, excellent point. YouTube, I never watch the cat and dog silly videos on YouTube. Actually, I won't say never. Occasionally I see them if somebody sends them. But my primary use of YouTube is for learning. If you want something a little bit more structured, LinkedIn Learning is kind of cool. I get it for free. I don't know how much it costs. But if you have it for free through your company, through your organization, that's a pretty cool deal. They have some more structured courses with like different sections and topics. But there's a lot of things you can get out there for free, for sure. And then where I would say certifications are, what is the job that you want that you don't have? And what certifications does it require? I always use my future job or my future work to drive me to get any type of education. So good points.
Mark, does that satisfy what you were looking for?
Yeah, and somehow I got to get my kids to hear this transcript or hear this thing, and this would be an awesome
podcast.
Yes,
I'll send you the link.
Yes, and this would be awesome. I just thinking again. I've been involved in the DC chapter, PMI chapter, for a long time. I'm the old dude in the chapter, and this would be an awesome presentation for the DC chapter for those project managers.
So I'm not going to pick on the word project. We can come back to that at a later date. You're talking to somebody who actually doesn't believe that's a good word. But I did ask, because Michael said he didn't actually ask. I did ask ChatGPT as we sat here the question, will AI take my project management job? So I'll just, and we're quoting ChatGPT. We'll give it full reference here. It is more likely that AI will augment project management roles rather than replace them entirely. So it's actually saying it will replace some of those roles. Project managers who embrace AI and continually update their skills, something we just talked about a bunch, update their skills to incorporate emerging technologies, will likely be better positioned to succeed in the changing work environment. Probably didn't take an AI to actually get to that, but I think we all sort of agree. As we sort of wrap up, AI, a boon, a bane, or a nothing burger?
I think for within the context of project managers, it's an unmitigated boon. I think there are many people within society for which this is going to be deadly. Many different levels within organizations where people, not just AI, but AI, automation, a combination of other things where people are going to just lose their jobs. I mean, just process automation alone is eating up jobs across the country. The back office kind of, jobs that have typically been immune to these types of technological and global, shifts. A lot of those jobs are going away. Obviously, truck drivers, things that are manual that you thought would be safe are going away. But I think project managers are uniquely positioned to do very well as long as they understand they must master this tool set. I think they're going to do very well because of the EQ component. Maybe in 15 years, things will change and we'll have AI that will be able to do the project management job completely. and reduce maybe maybe if you have 10 project managers in an organization, you're only going to need one. Because it does so much of the work, and this project manager, is just going to be operating the AI across hundreds of projects. That may be, but for now, for the next 5 to 7 years, I don't see a risk for project managers.
I do like it when Alexa tells me thank you. It does make me feel very happy, even though I know it's a robot. Paul, you were about to chime in.
Well, I agree with Michael. I think that project managers are not at risk, particularly if their strengths are their interpersonal skills, their communication skills. As a physicist, when I went to grad school, one of the recommendations they gave us is don't just take physics courses, take a course in interpersonal communication, for example,
Right.
because
Right.
it's so rare for scientists to be able to communicate effectively with each other. And if you do that, you will stand out in the crowd. I think that's the same, Mark made the same, point there with his children, right? If you learn as a technical person, if you learn those interpersonal skills, you will step ahead. Now, I think where AI is going is very vague right now. When I consult with companies, I find most of them are struggling to know where it's really going to benefit them. So I think the future, the real benefits are still a little bit vague. Everybody's searching to find out. Even the large companies like the Microsofts and the Googles are a bit struggling to figure out where to embed it in their product offering. So where it really starts taking off in a big way is still up in the air, I think.
Mark, and then we'll let Susan take us home. And
I don't know. We have a physicist in the group, but I love this quote from Niels Bohr that goes, "Forecasting is very, very difficult, especially when it involves the future." And I think
that sounds like a Yogi Berrism, right?
And again, I'm a computer guy, and Ken Olson, who was CEO of DEC back in 1977, was quoted as saying, somebody asked him, "What do you think of this PC revolution at the time?" And he said, "What in the H would anybody want with a computer in their home?" This is a CEO of one of the top computer companies in the world who did not have the vision it's so hard to see where things are going and how things are going to change.
If AI is good at taking historical information to predict the future, think about all the times in your life where you took your past experience to make a prediction about your future and how many times you were wrong about that. So on a daily basis, if you want to take AI to make my latte this morning, probably do a better job than me. Maybe not sprinkle some coffee on the countertop as I often do. But if there's something I'm going to create in the future that's something different, if I'm stepping into a new future, I do not want to look at my past to do that. I've done far too much growth and development education to know that when our future is driven by our past, it's not a good future. So if we think of it that way, boom. So I like the question, and I'm going to go back to leadership, grateful leadership, servant leadership. Those are two of my favorites. And if you're a good leader and you're a good motivator, you're definitely going to have a place for a long time. What it comes down to, no matter what the automation is, you're still going to need somebody to do the work. You're going to need to convince people. You're going to need to motivate people to invoke change. And if you don't have soft skills to do that, you're going to have a great project plan that never gets executed. So that's my vote. My vote is for people. For humans. I'm voting for the humans in the future.
Excellent.
But I think we got to work with the computers. We got to work with the AI and the robots. We got to be friendly with our enemy and keep asking it, how do I work with you?
Well, I'd like to hope that we don't think of it as our enemy, just because, well, we do have to work with it. Michael, how would people continue the conversation? How would they find out about Michael Milutis on the web?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That's my primary platform. You can search on me. There is only one Michael Milutis. Last time I checked, Milutis. I do a lot of public speaking, especially for PMI chapters. I'm always happy to sort of come and speak on the fourth industrial revolution, AI, these types of technological transformations and how it's affecting the future of work. So look me up, and I'm there.
Paul Clapis?
Well, I'm on paulclapis.com. It's paulclapis.com. Check it out. I've got a lot of articles in there, some background. I do a lot of public speaking. I'm an advocate for the inclusion of technology in the project management process. So I love going to project management meetings, podcasts, webinars, and standing on my soapbox.
Mark?
I'm on LinkedIn also, so there might be some other Mark Tolberts, but in the Washington, D.C. area, I'm sure you can find me there.
Ms. Parente.
Yes, I do podcasts here with Tom, but LinkedIn is a great place to find me. And I'm a great resource for anything certification. If I don't have a certification, I know somebody who has it. So I'm a great person for that. And for any other, professional education, graduate, any of those types of things. Very much into being a lifelong learner. And that's one of the reasons I do things like this. And I also listen to things like this because that's really what's going to help us in the long run is staying educated and being in the conversation.
Y'all, this has been an absolutely phenomenal morning. And obviously, when people consume this, it might not be morning, but we recorded this at 8:30 in the morning in Eastern time in the U.S., something that I don't think Michael Milutis has seen in at least several hundred years.
I never knew there was an 8:30 a.m. I only thought there was an 8:30 p.m. I didn't know there were two. There are two of them?
There are two of them. Yeah. So, as I said, this has been absolutely marvelous. A lot of fun. I'm glad that we had time to have this conversation. I like panels. And perhaps we can do it again and wrestle over that. There are other topics, perhaps. So, again, thank you very much. And I love to see you doing this again in the future. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?